Hey, it's something to talk about. I got waylaid,
What
dazed and confused.
happened?
I was doing something on the phone, sharing the show, and all of a sudden I thought, oh, wait a minute, we're going live. We're
Yeah.
going live again. And as we promoted, folks, the first thing we want to do is to thank each and every one of you that are watching this show and that have been following this show for almost 5 years. Five
I
years.
was trying to look back on the date. What was our first show? Did anybody look at that?
It was Halloween.
Well, so I have the
Around
Halloween.
Halloween 5 years ago, because that was one of the first shows that we had. We discussed Halloween, the origin of Halloween and how it morphed over the years, and our favorite memories of Halloween. And it's amazing to think that we've had over 250 conversations, and some of them have been just outright hilarious, funny. Some of them have been extremely serious. But there were no borders. We covered just about anything that was on our mind. The beauty of the show was that we would say we're going to discuss this week, and then all of a sudden something in the headlines happened, and we would get into the show and find out that we were just talking about what just happened.
Yes.
But we are as of the end of this show, we're going to put something to talk about kind of on the back burner for a little while, and all because you got your pen in your hand already. You spend a lot of time now writing grants and all, getting money for associations and foundations and stuff like that, and it's time consuming.
It can be. If anybody knows anything about the grant writing process, it can be, depending on the size of the grant, that you're going after, like if it's a big one or whatever. But yeah, it can require a lot of research. It can require meeting with people and just getting around, and then of course the writing process, and if there are any presentations, proposals involved in the application process and whatnot. So it's all very good and exciting, and I'm loving it. But finding that I want to give or dedicate more time to my grant writing. But in addition to that, as I mentioned to you and Mark, my kids are older and out of the house, young adults. But it just almost seems like I've gotten even busier with travel, just because they're all in different places. And it's not,
Right.
The days when they were all living here at home, I was busy just keeping up with everybody and getting everybody everywhere. And they were in the house and I was busy making meals and just busy with the busyness of having them here. But now I'm finding myself almost just as busy because I'm having to travel to be with them and to do certain things and to help them. They're all also in transition, all three of them. Matthew and Jenna just moved into a place. We helped them move. Emily's got a new venture in Tennessee coming up here soon. We're going to be moving her. Elizabeth, of course, had to move her back down to Waco, Baylor. So it just seems like, and then with other just general travel coming up. So it got to a point where I just thought I need to take a breath. I don't want to come screaming into this show and not have my mental state about me. So that's what we were calling it, as a break, right?
Well, and also there was we had discussions, and from my side of the screen, I said, I know that you're busy. I know that a lot has to do with travel, and every so often you would say, oh, I hate to do this, but next week I have to go do something with Matthew, or I need to do something, with Emily. And now, and I was faced with a decision. Okay, if Vaughn leaves, do I reach out to another co-host? And I realized that for something to talk about, this show that we developed together, I just couldn't do that. I couldn't either have a co-host every week or find another co-host, because this was our show and all. And so we would be better off just saying, okay, look, let's just back off for a little while, let you start to do your thing, and maybe a couple months from now we'll get together and we'll do a special show we'll say, hey, you want to do something next Wednesday? We'll reach out to Mark if the schedule's clear, and we'll come back and we'll do a discussion together like the good old days.
Yeah.
And it would probably be more meaningful to do that than to try and recreate the wheel.
Yeah, well, of course I agree. And you and I and Mark and I were talking about this before the show came on. I was kind of going through all the different, because I showed you, and I'll show you again. This was just the first, when I first started out on the show, I thought, oh, okay, well, this little pad will be enough for me to put all my notes on and whatnot. And I found that within, I don't know, just a few shows, I was done with this notepad and then moved into this bad boy.
Look at it.
Moved into this bad boy, which is the Something to Talk About Bible. I don't know. It's got literally every show we've done, all the topics, all the notes that I took, all the comments that you made. If you made a funny comment, if I made a funny comment, if we had a guest, their name, kind of background information, topics, like all of it's in here. With if I ever had to pull something off Google as part of my research is in here. I mean, I could literally go back into this, very hefty
that binder, and
I was looking at it before the show started, and I was kind of looking at all of our old topics, like pet peeves, personal peeves. Remember, we did the show on Where Are They Now? I know we'll probably get into this later, but fragrances, allergies. We had Dr. Lundy on the show one time. We had, I'm looking at, I'm like, dieting. I thought to myself, how is it that we never ran out of things to talk about? And keeping in mind that we tried to keep the show from being controversial, so we didn't talk a lot of politics. We kept, right. And remember, of course, it's always difficult to talk about what's going on in the news around you, in the world around you, and stay off politics, right? Because that seems to be the only thing. But we did. We managed to find lighthearted topics, and we would always come in unrehearsed, wouldn't share each other's notes, and we just managed to talk our way through an hour. Used to be an hour long, but now 45 minutes,
right?
Never running out of things to say to each other.
There's our friend Ty Foley says we need to come up with a book that's called Something to Read About.
Oh yeah.
that might be a good one. And I have a binder, and actually I have a file drawer that's filled with each one of the shows that we do. I keep the paperwork that I have with my notes, and I have maintained that. And I have a file drawer with a couple of folders, probably as thick as yours, that someday I'm going to sit back and I will start going through those one by one. And you mentioned about controversy. I would venture to say that probably the most controversial thing that we discussed was COVID. When it hit, because we were learning about what was going to be done, what businesses were going to do, how they were going to react to. And as businesses started closing, we started sharing a lot of that information for our listeners. And we not only did it on a local basis, but we tried to reach out and look at what was happening nationally to share with our audience, because we're very fortunate. We got a good broad national following and a lot of people from elsewhere in the country. It wasn't always about Frisco, but we were sharing a lot of information and insight into things that other people could wrap their arms around too.
Absolutely. And we all had to switch gears when we left the studio and took a little bit of a time off from the show during, I guess, I don't know how many weeks we did, but not long before Mark, came up with the new plan to just, we can nowadays, you don't need to be face to face in a studio to produce and, air a radio show. We just picked up from where we were at home, and
the early days were some fun times, because in our first year or almost 2 years, we were radio. We were in a studio. You used to go work out early in the morning, and you would walk into the studio and the hair was pulled back and there was this sweat and you were wiping on, and you were just, I remember those days. And you'd sit down in front of the microphone and we'd do the show. Then all of a sudden, Mark says, by the way, folks, starting next week, we're going to be going with Facebook. What's that? Well, you see those cameras up there? There's going to be cameras on you while you're doing your radio show. We're going to be sharing it visually with the audience. Well, I thought, oh, okay. Well, I always wanted to be radio, and now it's going to be visual radio. Okay, I can handle it. And Vaughn goes, oh my God, that means I got to go work out earlier because I got to go back. I got to do the hair and I got to change the clothes. And I remember you running into the studio sometimes.
Whip off the baseball cap.
Yeah. Do I look okay?
Yeah, that did definitely bring some logistical changes to my morning routine when we went to Facebook. But what was fun about that, transition onto Facebook and all the other, wherever we are now, but is that it really opened the door to so many of my friends, your friends, people that, to tune in, and because we went live and, we could share it. And it was just even my parents then could see, it was just really neat because, it brought us into people's homes and not just our voices, but, however we look in the world. By the way, I exercised this morning but I did not purposely. I didn't put a baseball cap on. I normally do. So my hair, I'm sweaty, but my hair was easier to fluff up today.
You look just like that first day.
Well, speaking of the very first day, so I have to say that this is kind of bringing me way back to when you and I first met, which was I came to speak at one of the what do you call your chapter meetings?
Well, you addressed the American Legion.
Do you just call it? Well, I know American Legions, but it was just one of your chapter meetings, or just?
Yeah. It was a monthly chapter meeting, and usually each month at the American Legion, they would have a featured speaker. Somebody would come on and talk about who they were and what they were. Sometimes it was politicians and all, but you addressed your connection with 9/11, which I will let you expound upon that, because I sat there just mesmerized at the composure that you had, because on 9/11 you lost your sister in Shanksville on Flight 93, and you spoke to this group of veterans, of which most of us were in tears, and all, for a lot of reasons. I had tears because not only was it a tough story to tell, but you handled it in such a great professional way. And I'll let you take it from here about your experience with that, because it's hard to believe that it's now 20 years since that fateful day. But that was the beginning of us. I was so impressed, and I was just starting with my program, Someone You Should Know. And I said, I got to reach out to this young lady and ask her if she would be a guest on my show. And you were. And after that, in a discussion with Mark, we said, she's an incredible young lady. And I said, I got an idea maybe for a second show. Can I look into it? He said, absolutely. And I called you and I said, would you like to co-host the show with me? And that's how Something to Talk About was born, because of that interaction.
Yep, exactly. And well, first of all, I wouldn't say that I'm incredible, but I do like to talk. So that's,
And you're easy to talk to.
That's one thing. But yeah, exactly. And so that was, what did you say, 5 years ago or whatever?
Yeah.
It was now.
It was just before the 15th anniversary. Actually, it was before the 15th anniversary of 9/11. And I had not only had you on the show, but also I was with you at the local commemoration of that day here in Frisco at Freedom Meadow.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was kind of what got the ball rolling.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was thrilled to be able to do that. But yeah, and here we are at the 20-year mark, anniversary of 9/11, which is, sometimes I think the years have gone by fast, and other times I think very slowly. I don't know. I guess it just depends on my thoughts at the moment when I'm kind of reflecting. But we're planning on heading up there, of course, this year. That's another travel that I have coming up.
Right.
My whole family and everybody we will be in Shanksville. We were, of course, there at the 10-year, which was a beautiful ceremony. And also they had the internment at that time, which was very obviously meaningful. It's the sacred ground now for family members only to go on to visit, but it is part of the memorial. And so this year, though, being the 20-year anniversary, just marking the 20-year anniversary, will be very poignant and very meaningful. And I don't even know who's going to be there. I guess they can't really say for security reasons who's going to be there to speak and whatnot. In the past, it has been one president or another, but who knows?
Right.
But, I guess we'll all find out at the same time. But yeah, and so I love the idea of the show, and just being a guest on your show. I believe Jeremy joined us on that show, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, actually, I think both of us have almost all of our family members. I wanted to ask you, has Elizabeth ever been on the show?
No.
Okay, so Elizabeth has not, but Matthew
yeah.
has. Emily was on a couple of times.
Mm-hmm.
Phil has been on the show.
Yep,
I will tell you, and I'm not saying this just because it's your father, but I think probably when I go back and review all of our shows over the years, some of the best shows we had featured your dad,
nice.
Coach Larry. When we would talk about sports, very often Phil or Larry or both would be on with their predictions of what was going to happen in the sports realm. And your dad spent so many years on the college and professional level of football. He is just a magnificent guest to have on this show, and just loved every minute of talking with him. And we've had my son, my daughter, my grandson, and Lauren not only has been a guest on the program, but very often when something would come up and you may have to be out of town, she filled in and was a part of the program. So our families got involved in the program, and I'm very, very happy about that also.
Yeah, it was fun to have them as guests, and they love being on it. And my dad, he's always got a lot to say, but he says it very eloquently, and he's kind of like me. He likes to share his thoughts. He likes to talk. He likes conversation. He likes good conversation. And so he's always one that, you can't go wrong to have him on a talk show.
And there's an old saying that it's a small world, and a little factoid to throw in here was that we very often found that there were lots of things that kind of crisscrossed. I think you were born in New Jersey.
No, I was born in Ohio.
Oh, you were born in Ohio. Okay.
Columbus, that's where Dad was the Buckeye.
Okay, you were spent a lot of time in New Jersey. I was born in New Jersey, but
after that I went to New Jersey.
But I found out that your dad was a coach at Indiana University, and I was just doing a little bit of research, and I realized that he was there when I was there. I was there as a student. He was a coach. I'm sure that he would not mind me saying that he was there between 61 and 64, and it was not the most productive years for Indiana University's football squad. He was under Coach Dickens, but after that, John Pont came on, and the entire time from 63 to 67 that I was there, I think we maybe won a handful of games. The year I graduated and left, they went to the Rose Bowl. But I was amazed to see that your two sisters were both born in Bloomington, Indiana, and your sister Lauren, who sadly perished on 9/11, was actually born just about the time that I arrived on campus in 1963.
Yeah, she was born in 63, August. Yep.
Crazy that those little factoids.
And that kind of life and circumstances would lead us both to Frisco, Texas. I mean, who would have Frisco, Texas, right? Although now it's but when we got here, it was not much, but now,
we spent a lot of time, as I say, we talked about sports from time to time. And usually it was at the beginning of a season or toward the end of the season. We certainly all were absolutely head over heels this past spring when Baylor won the national basketball championship. And every show started off with "Go Bears" and what they did as they were progressing to the Final Four, of which we have again a personal connection because my sister was there in Indianapolis working the Final Four, and we were both just intently watching all of the shows. But man, I mean, so many categories. I think back of all of the things, our discussions about school, because you were and you still are a substitute teacher. You have a background in teaching and a passion for that. We talked about active shooter drills in our schools. We had guests on to talk about that. We talked about your opinion and viewpoint of it and how it was affecting the educational community. I mean, those were some incredible, interactions and conversations that we had.
Some topics were meatier than others.
Yeah.
Some were just so like you had talked about Halloween. We talked about costumes. I think we even had a manager of a Halloween store on the line with us, not in the studio.
We dropped in to a local Halloween shop to ask what the hot costumes were for the year.
And if you recall that Halloween, and I know this not because my memory is so sharp, but because I have my notes here.
Your notes.
That Halloween, one very popular costume was the clown costume, because if you remember, that was the year that there was this big kind of, I don't know, hoax online where they were scary clowns.
Scary clowns
showing up in certain places and scaring people. And it was kind of a thing that was going on. And sometimes it was turning into, like it was having bad consequences. I don't remember the specifics of the joke, but it was kind of a joke that had become popular. And in some cases, a joke gone bad, but it was a clown. And it was a clown costume that was very popular that year. So that was it's fun to kind of go back on your notes.
Well, we discussed almost every holiday. Around Thanksgiving time, we talked about some of our favorite recipes. Mm-hmm. Christmas time, gifts, gift giving, and gift getting, and what we had done over the years. We talked about Easter, the various things that we do around Easter time, and each one of the patriotic holidays we highlighted: Veterans Day, Memorial Day. One of my favorite discussions we got into is what you and your what basically you did for your kids' birthdays.
Oh yeah, I forgot that one.
Yeah, that you did.
What did I say?
You always did something special. Share it again. What you did for each one of the kids on their birthday?
Well, if you're talking about the confetti path you're talking about that. Oh yeah. Well, yeah. We still do that when we can, believe it or not, and they're all 18 and above. Yeah, we just confetti. It's a confetti walk leading from their bedroom door to wherever. If we're here down the stairs, but we've done it if we're traveling. We've done the confetti walk from wherever they are in the morning, so they wake up and they get to confetti walk down to where their gifts are and their balloons are and whatnot. Which that was a fun little tradition. Yeah.
Lauren listened to that show and immediately said, "I can't believe that after that confetti walk, you have to go back and clean up all that confetti." And
I would. Yep. And
that was part of the celebration.
It's a bitch being a good mom. I cannot, as I'm sitting here flipping through my notes, because it's addicting to sit here and just go back to all of this. I don't know that I could pick a favorite show, because I'm just remembering we did one on reality TV, and that was just really, really interesting to me, because I'm just looking back on all my notes of all the reality shows and the history of reality shows and what's popular and why and who's become famous as a result, and how has it affected society. Some of our shows, they were good topics, and they really, really generated sometimes so many other kind of it branched out into so many other kind of subtopics of that big topic. I can't tell you how many times you and I would be talking, and we'd be talking about one big topic, and we'd start talking about something that related to it, and we would say to each other, well, that's a whole other topic,
Right.
and it just kind of worked like that to where, we would have this one topic, and then you and I would just kind of get going, and we would come up with other subtopics from that topic. And
It was like the TV shows that had spin-offs.
yeah, exactly like that.
And we talked about that too. We talked about favorite TV shows, favorite movies, favorite music, favorite recipes.
Yep.
What do you put on your pizza?
Yeah, foods. Yep. And I know we did not talk about political thing, but I am seeing here on Friday, November 11th, we talked about the 2017 presidential election. I must have blocked that out of my mind because I'm having to look back on my notes here, and we
that
so
was
we did,
November 11th, so that would have been
November
Veterans.
November 11th. I'm sorry,
Yeah, that would have been Veterans Day. So we probably talked a little bit about veterans and veteran activities.
Yeah, we talked a lot about the candidates, the campaign. We talked about media malpractice. We talked about presidential character. We must have, I don't know, we were feeling a little daring on that show because we tried to keep, but I think we really just kept it to kind of what we were observing in society in terms of how politics have kind of changed and evolved over the years. I think you and I were kind of looking at it more factually versus, kind of candidates and who's more qualified and that. Because my notes are suggesting that that's kind of what we did. How celebrities can influence presidential elections, social media, post-election stress. This looked like a nice, good, beefy show here that we did.
Well, we talked a lot about social media because we talked about both the good aspects and the bad aspects of social media, about how some people would use social media to vent and be a little bit abrasive, and how other people used it to share positive thoughts, and also we often went back to social media because sometimes it was something that happened on social media that would give us the onus to have a program about that, or at least spend some of the time talking about that.
Absolutely. Social media seems to work its way into a lot of different topics, doesn't it? It just does. It has a way of just kind of, you could be talking about one thing and all of a sudden you're mentioning social media again and how it has impacted, that whatever.
I think one of the fun discussions that we had about that was we talked about how social media had worked its way into the family experience, going out for dinner where, you'd go out to have a nice meal together and everybody was sitting there with their phones and messaging and texting instead of interacting with each other. So, we covered that aspect of it too. We did spend an awful lot of time talking about travel because occasionally I was traveling. We were going back and forth to visit my relatives and Lauren's mom down in Florida. You spent time in Cancun. You have a place up in the mountains. And I was always very jealous. Every time you would go up to the cabin up in North Carolina, I was always so jealous because it was just like a departure from reality, and just go up and kick back and relax. And you did it, and you still do it every year. And you shared what it was like to be there with our audiences, and I think it gave all of us a kind of a way to kind of sit back and relax and say, you know what, sometimes you need a break from the hubbub of every day.
Yeah, I mean, social media for me is something that topic, like I said, it seemed to work its way into a lot of our conversations, but to me, social media seems like a topic that is never ending in terms of aspects of the topic. There's always something that seems to change, or something that happens, or something that you observe or hear about, regarding social media that makes you want to continue talking about. And I think the bottom line is you can either use social media, misuse social media. And I think that's kind of like you draw the line, because I mean, just to your point of going out, I love seeing those pictures of maybe a vacation here and there. I love to see those. The everyday reports on what you're eating and drinking and doing and seeing, and it's just, you just want to almost say to that person, just go and enjoy and be in that moment by yourself or with your family or with your friends, and don't feel the need to report it to everybody and advertise it. And I think it really has such a negative, it can have such a negative effect on the younger people because they're seeing all of this out there, and it almost makes them feel that if they're not doing it, they're doing something wrong, or they're not where they should be, or something, you know. So I don't know. Social media was definitely something that we touched on a lot, and I feel like I can continue to talk about it, and we're never going to arrive at an answer.
Well, you're never going to get away from it. In fact,
Yeah.
it keeps morphing itself more and more every year. I do remember this past winter when it got so terribly cold here in Frisco. Somebody that I know that I share this show with me posted on Facebook, sitting on the beach with a drink in hand while we were freezing our little buns off. You were on the beach in Cancun.
That's awful. I don't know.
I'm not sure it was somebody, but
by the way, it
was a cheap shot.
It wasn't Cancun. It was Florida. You remember, it was the only little spot.
Excuse me.
It wasn't. It was. Well, that was just rude.
Well, it was either a mixed drink or a glass of wine. I don't remember that either. I do remember that you are a purveyor of Merlot. That Merlot is one of your.
I drink red and white. I don't discriminate. I drink both. I drink whatever.
You're an equal opportunity drinker.
Yeah, exactly. I don't discriminate there.
You also subscribe to that phrase that it's not a matter of whether the glass is half full or half empty. The important part is the glass is refillable.
Very good. Did you just come up with that? You know, you always said you wanted to write greeting cards. I think you should.
Right. And I think I probably got that from a greeting card.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But
I don't have the.
You were talking about the media too. We spent a show talking about reality TV.
Yep.
And about what shows we liked, which ones we didn't like, and all that. That was a fun show. I got to tell you, I think one of my favorite shows that we did, it would probably be up there in that top 10, was we did a show on a couple of shows on Would You Rather.
Oh yeah, those were fun.
We would spend the time just talking about, would you rather, live deserted on an island or something else, and we'd just discuss it. If you won the lottery, what would you do with $1 million?
Right.
Those were fun discussions because they were kind of off the cuff discussions, and it was not a specific topic. It was just kind of sharing our ideas.
Yeah. And those, listen, we would have, well, I don't know how many weeks, multiply 5 years and whatever. I don't know the math on that, but many, many, many weeks. And a lot of times we would come to each other with multiple topics, and we'd say, okay, well, let's just pick this one or whatever. And then other weeks we would just be like, I can't think of one. Can you? I can't think of one. And then you would be like, mostly you would be like, let's just do something. And you would come up with maybe just what would you do or something like, and those were so fun. Like those shows were just, and I think also those shows tended to get a little bit more listener interaction because people would want to say what they would rather do or whatever. It was almost like we were playing a game. And
it was kind of our take on reality. I mean, as I say, sometimes I would say to you, usually we would go back and forth. For those that don't know, our process was usually around Saturday or Sunday. I would send a text and I would say, "You got anything for Wednesday?" And Vaughn would say, "How about we talk about this?" Okay, fine. Sometimes she would write back and say, "I got nothing. What do you think?" And I would say, "Well, we could talk about this or this," and you'd pick one, or you would say, "I don't know." Sometimes we would get to Tuesday evening and we would text back and forth and just say, "I'll tell you what, when the camera goes on, we'll just go. We'll just go for it."
Right.
And what did you do this week? Oh, what did you do this week? And
Exactly.
it would just evolve into whatever the discussion was.
So I love those lighthearted shows, but I loved the more serious shows just as much because I would find myself just really getting conversation. I mean, so one that we did many years ago, well, in 2017, I think my notes are reflecting. We did it we paid respect to our men and women in blue, and we had a lot to talk about. There must have been, I'd have to go and really dig into these notes, but there was a lot going on with our police officers, and Jerry Walker, I believe, wait a second, join Little Elm. Oh, okay. Yeah. So I think you remember all that. I think we had a guest on that day to talk about, I think anyway, I don't want to get into it, but that was my point, is one of our more serious shows, which didn't really offer up maybe a lot of, laughs, but a lot of times I felt like our shows were bringing awareness to the community. We would pick a timely topic, albeit that was controversial, but you and I, again, I feel like we're pretty good about just kind of bringing up the facts and not really turning it into a debate, but just kind of saying, here's where we are, and here's kind of what both sides of maybe the community are seeing and how they're reacting. And I really walked away from those shows feeling like not necessarily good, but just, feeling like we contributed in some way. We brought some awareness on a particular topic. So I like those serious shows.
And those were some of the best shows we had too. And we invited guests to come on and talk about what their businesses were all about. We had a great conversation with over the years with independent local business owners. Number one, how they adapted to the pandemic. We've talked with, and we concentrated on individually owned and operated businesses, because there were certainly more challenges for those businesses than there were for the big box stores or the larger 12, 14 location type businesses. We concentrated on those individuals that maybe started with nothing and had an idea for a shop and started it and then built it up into a viable business. It was those kinds of positive thinking shows that we often had. We had members of the police department and fire department to talk about various aspects. I remember going back a few years when, unfortunately, the school violations led to a need for active shooter drills. We invited people to come on the program to talk about what the impact was, both from the police side and as well as from the educational side, the parental side. And I think that we not only did we inform and entertain people, but I think we had a certain degree of education in our shows. And I think that was important for us to get that point across too to people.
I think so. And that's exactly kind of the point I was trying to make, is that I loved our lighthearted shows when we really didn't have anything really to sink our teeth into. But to your point, the ones that were like we did on the police, we did one on animal rescue, businesses. We did one on mental health. We had a guest speaker on mental. So and that's just to touch on just a small sampling of the more. But I agree, there were shows that were lighthearted and fun, more like a game. Shows that were more educational, which you and I would do our research on and try to bring up as many facts as we could. And again, we didn't have all the answers, never claimed to, but
right.
we were pretty good about providing resources and information. Should you need to, want more information on this particular topic, go here, go there. With the internet, you can just walk away from almost any conversation and gather more information on it. But I did equally like both the more serious educational kind of building awareness topics and the lighthearted as well. I mean, allergies, we had a doctor on to talk about allergies. And so I think it was a very, very good balance. We talked about weather at one point. I mean, you're really reaching for something to talk about when you're talking about just how's the weather. But we were like talking about something serious, because in Texas it's
No, and that was, I remember that conversation too, because we talked about, well, if a weather forecaster says it's going to be partly cloudy or partly sunny, and that he was correct. And if he
Yeah.
said there's a chance of rain, he was correct.
Right,
So
right.
so yeah,
Snow,
but
it could snow, or there could be a hurricane, or it could be sunny. I mean, we don't know.
I
And we,
remember we did a show on superstitions too, and
oh yeah,
that was a lot of fun. You know, about things that people are nutsy about. You know, obsessive compulsive disorders, and I mean, there wasn't anything that we wouldn't cover or didn't cover. I think in that 5 year period, we were always open to suggestions from people. We covered the arts in so many different ways. We talked about movies. We talked about live performances. We talked about concerts. We talked about music. You know, our favorites or the ones that get under our skin. It was a lot of fun just bouncing around and coming up with all kinds of different topics.
we got down to gadgets, Stuart. We talked about gadgets.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
we talked about, what's on your bucket list. We talked about, inappropriate and appropriate behavior in society. We talked, going back to school, just all this, just cell phone use, appropriate cell phone use. What are cell phone
Yes.
etiquette? Oh, we had a whole show on tipping your waiter or waitress, clothing, what people wear, stuff. I mean, habits of healthy people versus habits of unhappy people. I mean, I just could sit here and flip through this, and I probably will, all day. Well, not all day. I've got things to do, but
Right.
I like the one on pet peeves. I'm looking here at the note, I'm reminding myself. I'm going to get myself all in a tizzy as I head out today, because I'm reminding myself that slow walkers, and I have to hit them all today. Slow walkers drive me insane.
Well, and the more we talked about that on that show, the more the two of us were like bobbleheads,
I
because
know.
we kept
Yes.
we're talking about people driving, below the
Yeah.
speed limit in the far left lane.
Right.
Yeah. People that don't use their turn signals. Oh yeah.
Yeah, that too. How about this, Stuart? Quiet talkers. You didn't hear
So
me, right?
what?
Quiet talkers.
Oh
Do you know
yes.
Do you know any quiet talkers?
Right. Huh? What?
It's
What?
like, just, I'm not going to talk to you if you can't.
Yeah. The only time you should be a quiet talker like that or something is if you get called to jury duty.
Yeah.
And they say, is there any reason why you can't serve on jury duty? You go, huh?
I'm like that.
That's that was always a good answer.
Well,
we were also very, very fortunate because over especially the last few years, we had people like Christine Dean from DFW Networking Diva, who was a sponsor of our show. We had Irving Chung, who is a franchise consultant that sponsored our show. We had people that thought enough about us and our program to want to sponsor it. We thank them very, very much. We certainly want to thank the people that were watching and listening to us, not only today, but over the years, that gave us the support, gave us a lot of ideas for our shows, but also gave us the confidence to keep on going. That was very, very important to us. And what else can I say? It meant an awful lot to us. I really looked forward every week to, even though we were looking at a camera on our computers, to be able to see you on the screen, to look over there and say, hey, she's still Vaughn.
And hey, he's still, I can never do it. It's still Stuart.
Yeah.
I'm giving you a wet willy.
Yeah, and we started our shows that way almost every time.
Don't forget, my cats made a couple guest appearances.
Yes, yeah. Well, cats did. Your dog, but before.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh,
that's right, Duke.
Before he passed, we also did this. I always seem to be using a studio background in my shots. You were in reality. You were the reality show.
I don't know how to do the backdrop thing, so here I am.
Yeah, so you were either in your living room, you were out on your patio, around the pool. So we always got the live reality part of
I
Vaughn.
welcomed you into my home.
Yes. Well,
listen, I'm going to get my traveling done. I'm going to get this grant writing going. And, then we're just going to have even that much more to talk about when we get back together.
And we will. Thank you very, very much to all of you for sharing some great memorable moments with us, and us spending memorable moments with you, I hope. And most of all, just spending this time together. Also, a great shout out to Mark Warner, who helped us develop this show, produce the show, both here locally in Frisco, and then when he moved up to Michigan, continued as our producer. This show would not have happened without him too, and his input. But it's been a great experience, and we're not saying goodbye, folks. We're just kind of saying a see you later, because we want to leave that door open, that sometime we will get together and say, hey, how about next Wednesday we get together? Mark says he's free, we're free. Let's get together and do a little catch up.
And we'll put it out there for everybody to see and know when we're going to be doing one of our special shows together coming up.
Yep. And it has been special, and it'll continue to be special. And the very, very best to you, my very dear friend, my second wife, because we probably spend more time talking to each other than our spouses probably did with us, because we did it on a regular basis.
Yeah. I'm just your second wife who's on the road traveling all the time.
That's right. Well, the very, very best of luck to you in all your endeavors, and with the grant writing and all. And we will do this again soon. So, folks, again, it ain't goodbye. It's kind of a see you later. So we'll leave it. We'll end the show that way by saying,
don't go too far, because
we'll see you later.
See you later.
Bye-bye.
Bye.